Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the tattered boots of someone who made what might be the worst travel decision in history, joining Napoleon's invasion of Russia. You're part of the Grand Armée, the most formidable force Europe has ever seen, at least on paper. Right now you're squinting under the blistering summer sun, wiping sweat from your brow, and wondering what kind of idiot signs up to march thousands of miles toward a place no one actually wants to be. At first, things feel surprisingly manageable. You've got rations, a working musket, and a vague sense of glory humming somewhere between your aching shoulders. The roads through Poland are dusty but firm, and the officers bark commands with enough conviction to make you believe this all might work. And really, how bad can Russia be? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is where you're watching this. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge past waving wheat fields, the edges of Europe fraying behind you. The army around you is massive, nearly 500,000 men. There's a hum of boots, horses, and occasional swearing in 6 different languages. Napoleon's army isn't just French. It's a patchwork of Dutch, Italians, Germans, Poles, and others who probably didn't read the fine print before signing up. You're walking alongside someone who doesn't speak your language, but you both understand that you're sweating through the same wool uniform and hoping the guy on the horse knows where he's going. Spoiler, he does not. The first sign something's off isn't dramatic. It's subtle. Maybe the bread gets moldy faster. Maybe the water skins start tasting like rust and disappointment. Your sergeant shrugs and says, "We'll reach Moscow in 5 weeks." Historians still argue whether Napoleon truly believed that, or whether it was just good marketing. You pass villages that seem eerily empty, not just empty cleared, no dogs barking, no smoke from chimneys, just the echo of your own steps and maybe a broken doll lying in the dirt. It's like the people here evaporated, taking their chickens and vodka with them. This is Russia's infamous scorched earth policy. And no, it's not just a dramatic metaphor. The locals actually set fire to their own homes, poisoned their wells, and fled, just so you'd have nothing to loot. You sleep outside. There aren't enough wagons, and tents are for officers anyway. The nights are warmer than you'd expect, but the mosquitoes form organized battalions. You learn to sleep with your hat over your face and one eye cracked open for rats. By day, you march. By night, you scratch and dream of Paris. The boots begin to betray you first. They were never good boots, just hard leather and wishful thinking. After 100 miles, your blisters have personalities. One of them's French. Another is definitely Prussian. You name the worst one, Marshal Puss. You hear rumors that the Russians are burning their own cities, that Napoleon is furious, that someone saw a man eat part of a saddle. You try not to think about it. Your mind becomes a soft loop of left foot, right foot, left foot, bread crust. Don't die. The horses are suffering too. Thousands of them. Some lie down and don't get up again. One collapses near you, and its eyes look too human for comfort. An officer barks for it to be cleared from the road. No one moves. Eventually the flies do. Napoleon is out there somewhere ahead of you. Allegedly. He rides in a carriage with padded walls and updates maps no one sees. The only time you hear from him is through a chain of messengers who all look progressively more annoyed. You wonder if he's cold at night. Probably not. Every day you wake up with the same question. Why is Russia so far away? Then the smell starts. It's faint at first, like bad meat and regret, but it grows. That's the scent of the army, rotting while still technically alive. Food has become a grim joke. The wagons can't keep up, and the supply lines are a fantasy. You trade a silver coin for a turnip. You eat grass. You steal from your comrade while he's looking the other way. A man collapses beside you. You don't know his name, and neither does the officer who steps over him. The march doesn't stop. It never stops. If you can walk, you live. If you can't, you stay behind and probably become part of the scenery. And still, the horizon is endless. One night, during a rare fire-lit pause, someone plays a harmonica. Badly. It's the worst music you've ever heard, and you almost cry from how good it feels to hear something so dumb. Another man tries to sing along. He has one tooth. You all laugh like drunk ghosts. That moment, flickering flames, terrible harmonica, and laughter that feels borrowed from a better life is what keeps you going the next day. Because the land is changing. It's flatter, emptier. The sun has started setting sooner, and the wind stings a little harder. You don't say it out loud, but you're pretty sure winter is watching you from just beyond the trees. And still, Napoleon presses forward. Because retreat isn't in the script. Not yet. You're not marching toward Moscow anymore. You're marching toward something colder, darker, and much, much hungrier. By now, your feet aren't really feet anymore. They're soft, cracked shapes of flesh that vaguely resemble feet. You stopped looking at them around the time you realized that peeling skin and bleeding socks were just part of the job description. Every step sends a quiet jolt up your spine, like a reminder that your body still knows how to protest. You sleep in what they call bivouacs. Basically, that's a military term for hope. You like dirt. There are no tents for you. A few lucky ones use cloaks as blankets, maybe huddle under overturned carts or next to their horses. The rest of you just curl into yourself like a dying insect and pray the frost doesn't come early. You do this every night now. One morning, you wake up to find the man next to you very still. Too still. You give him a nudge with your elbow. Nothing. A second nudge. Still nothing. He's not breathing, and his lips have that grayish tinge like he's been holding his breath for hours. You close his eyes out of habit or guilt. No one else says anything. He doesn't get a burial. He gets a quiet moment, and then his coat goes to the coldest man nearby. The lice are everywhere. You scratch until your skin peels. You boil your shirt when you can find fire, and still they return biting in unison like tiny percussionists. The itching is constant, a background noise, more reliable than orders. Historians still argue whether it was lice starvation or typhus that killed more soldiers. But if you had to vote, you'd put your money on all of the above working together. Your uniform used to have buttons, fancy ones, maybe even engraved with an eagle. Now you hold it closed with a bit of twine you stole from a wagon. You smell like wet wool smoke and whatever's been rotting in your pack for 3 weeks. One of the worst parts is the boredom. Yes, even while starving and freezing, you still have time to be bored. Marching turns your mind into soup. You count steps. You recite songs backward. You make up stories about how this will all be worth it once you reach Moscow. Maybe you'll open a bakery. Maybe you'll marry a Russian widow and name your firstborn Victory. More likely, you'll die somewhere east of nowhere with a piece of stale carrot in your mouth. A lot of the men around you are younger than they look. Some don't even have full beards. One of them, Francois, you think starts talking to his dead brother every night. He whispers like it's a prayer. You don't stop him. Honestly, it's kind of comforting to hear a voice that doesn't end in shouting or coughing. Meals are a dream now. On good days, you get something hot from the field kitchen, a thin stew that smells like it once knew a cow. On bad days, you scrape frost from your canteen, melt it, and sip it like wine. If you're lucky, there's still a scrap of bread in your coat, lining half frozen and hard as artillery iron. You soak it in snow to chew it. They once handed out horse meat and called it rations. No one asked where the horse came from. Everyone ate anyway. It's around this time you begin to wonder if Napoleon is even still leading this campaign. You haven't seen him, of course, not in the flesh. He's up there somewhere behind the curtain like a general-shaped wizard. Rumors say he eats well, travels in a warm coach, and hasn't had to walk a single step. His officers still scream about honor and victory, but their voices are starting to crack under the weight of frost. Your blisters have turned into calluses, and the calluses are splitting open. You wrap your feet in cloth, then lose the cloth to another soldier. You try again with leaves, then hay, then nothing. Just raw skin inside, worn boots squelching like wet parchment. Sometimes when you pass through a village, you see what's left behind: broken shutters, a forgotten doll, maybe an old woman who stayed behind because she couldn't run. You lock eyes. She doesn't flinch. You do. There's something in her look that says you won't make it. She's probably right. The weather is shifting. Nights are colder days, shorter. You try to forget. It's only August. You overhear officers whispering about supply wagons falling behind, or getting lost, or looted. You realize you've stopped caring about enemy soldiers. You haven't seen one in weeks. It's like Russia is fighting you with silence, and it's winning. You're not alone in this, but it sure feels like it. The army is still massive, but everyone's pace is different now. Some limp, some shuffle. Some drag themselves forward by sheer inertia, as if forward motion is the only thing keeping them alive. You rarely talk. When you do, it's in grunts or gestures. You've all learned a new language fatigue. Once a man beside you started singing, not well, not even on key, just a hum, really. He kept at it for hours. When someone asked him to stop, he looked confused. "What's singing?" he said. That night he wandered off and didn't return. The strange thing is, there's still pride. Somewhere in your cracked rib cage, you still feel it. Not in victory, not in Napoleon, but in surviving one more mile. You look at the man next to you and know you've both become something ancient and awful, soldiers melted into ice and dust. And yet, still standing. There's an old superstition whispered in camp. If your boots freeze, standing up, you're next. You check yours every morning. So far, they've only frozen sideways. You take that as a win. The skies turned a deeper shade of blue, the kind of blue that bites, the kind of blue that's not found on flags or maps. It's the blue of a cold that hasn't arrived yet but is already curling its fingers around your throat. You still march, because that's all you've ever done. You march through hunger, boredom, biting insects, and open sores. And you march into something worse, something that's waiting just over the next hill. You march, and winter waits. You reach the Niemen River like it's some kind of finish line, except instead of cheers and laurel wreaths, you get mud, mosquitoes the size of coins, and the creeping dread that whatever lies beyond is going to chew you up and spit you out sideways. The river isn't wide, but it feels symbolic, like a portal. On one side, Europe. On the other, a rumor called Russia. You cross it anyway. Boots sloshing, breath held, eyes fixed on the forest ahead, like it might blink back at you. Nobody sings. Not even the officers pretend this is glorious. This is the edge of the known world, and even Napoleon's usual flair can't dress that up. Once you're across, everything changes. The trees are thicker here, darker. The air tastes like damp wood and quiet warnings. You don't see many Russians. In fact, the only Russians you've spotted so far are either smoke trails on the horizon or vague shapes far in the distance, galloping away before anyone can shout halt. It's like they're playing some cruel game of hide and freeze, and you're already losing. You keep moving past fields that were probably farms a few weeks ago. Now they're just trampled earth, with maybe a scorched pig pen or a wheelbarrow half melted into ash. You spot a turnip once, just one. Someone dives for it. It disappears in seconds. There's no sharing anymore. Hunger has turned everyone into solo players in a team game. By now, your uniform smells like betrayal. The cloth never fully dries. Your pack has a family of lice in it, and your hat gave up holding shape weeks ago. The only part of you holding it together is sheer spite. That and the fantasy that maybe, just maybe, there's something worth finding at the end of this endless forest path. Spoiler, there isn't. Still, you try to find meaning in the routine. You get up, you walk, you mutter a prayer or curse depending on the weather, and you try not to think about how many men have stopped walking. Some drop mid-step. Others lean against trees and just stop, like a toy wound down. You've learned not to look too long. One day you pass a cart with frozen limbs poking out from beneath a tarp. Someone's rigged it like a meat wagon. It's not official. No one talks about it. But you all know it's the new transport for those who didn't quite make it. You wonder quietly if you'll get a tarp when it's your turn. The forest begins to thin again. Swamps now. Your boots slosh through muck, and every step feels like the earth wants to pull you under. One man loses a shoe to a puddle and cries like a child. Another breaks a finger trying to pull him out. No one offers help anymore. Not because they don't care, but because they simply can't afford to. Historians still argue whether the Grand Armée's biggest enemy was the Russian army or just Russia itself. The land, the size, the indifference, the way it swallows everything and leaves behind only echoes and bones. You begin to understand the term no man's land. This place belongs to no one, not even those born here. It's a liminal zone, a stretch of frostbitten, nothing that seems to exist purely to challenge the notion that humans were ever supposed to conquer nature. Someone finds a dog one morning, a real live dog, skinny as a stick and just as twitchy. They argue about whether to eat it or keep it for company. The argument doesn't last long. That night, there's soup. You wish it had barked. Maybe then it wouldn't have felt so much like betrayal. The officers are growing quieter too. Orders are more clipped, less about strategy and more about survival. Keep walking. Stay together. Don't sleep yet. No one talks about Moscow anymore. It's become a myth, a bedtime story with a cruel punchline. You're starting to suspect it's not even real. The enemy finally appears, barely. A flash of cavalry, a few shots from tree lines. They don't really fight. They poke, prod, vanish, like wolves testing a herd. You return fire, mostly out of habit. No one celebrates a kill. You don't even bother to check. One night, you hear cannon fire in the distance. You haven't heard that sound in weeks. It's oddly nostalgic, almost comforting, like a reminder that there was once a time when this was about war, not just walking to your own funeral. The next morning you find your musket frozen. You try to clean it with snow, a fool's errand. It jams on the first attempt. Someone next to you throws theirs into the woods and shrugs. It's just dead weight now. You understand immediately. You're not in a war anymore. You're in a waiting room for extinction. You stumble into what used to be a village. Charred logs, maybe a few broken tools. But there's one cabin left intact. You don't question it. You break the door open and cram inside with 5 other men. It smells like soot and hope. You collapse against a wall and feel warmth again for the first time in days. The floor is lined with hay. You fall asleep with your cheek in it. It feels like heaven. You wake up to find the cabin empty. Everyone's gone, even the warmth. You're not sure if it was real. You keep walking. At some point, someone in your unit finds a hidden stash onions, maybe potatoes, real food. They cheer. You eat until your stomach rebels, not used to real nourishment. You vomit behind a tree and laugh. It feels decadent. You share a look with the man who found the food. Neither of you says anything, but you both know this won't last. Nothing does out here. The sky is gray every day now, not just clouded angry, the kind of gray that presses down on you like it knows what's coming, and it's not in the mood to warn you. You march. Your legs are no longer legs. They're levers, extensions of will. You keep moving because you're afraid of what will happen if you stop. You don't think anymore. Thinking leads to questions, and questions lead to fear. Better to just walk. One more step, one more breath, one more silent forest. Welcome to Russia. Somewhere ahead, far, far ahead, they say Moscow waits. You've heard it in whispers passed between shivering men, usually when someone tries to stay optimistic. Once we get to Moscow, we'll rest. There'll be supplies there. It's the capital. They wouldn't burn their own capital. You nod when people say that. It's easier than laughing in their face, but you've never seen Moscow, of course. Most people in the Grand Armée haven't. It's a concept more than a city now. A shimmering goal, always just over the next ridge, over the next river, over the next frostbitten corpse in your path. And so you walk. But as the army gets closer, something shifts. Not in you. Necessarily you gave up shifting around Section 2 of this nightmare, but in the air. The temperature is dropping definitely. That's no longer subtle. It bites your skin and leaves red trails on your cheeks. You sleep curled tighter each night like a dying fern. The wood you used to find for fires now snaps with a different sound, drier, sharper. Winter is here. It's just pretending not to be official yet. The wind picks up and the air smells of smoke. That's always how it starts. One of the scouts returns with a strange look on his face. Not frightened, not triumphant, just resigned. You hear the news in fragments. Moscow's empty. They set it on fire. There's no one there. When you finally crest a hill and see the outline of the city through the haze, you understand what he meant. Smoke curls from rooftops, not from chimneys. From rooftops, black spirals rise like ghosts and buildings collapse in slow motion, reduced to nothing by men who'd rather destroy their home than let you sleep in it. The streets are deserted, not a welcome committee in sight, just ashes. Your boots crunch not on cobblestone, but on something softer, charred paper, burnt textiles, hopes. So, this is Moscow. You made it. Congratulations. You win a front row seat to watching it burn. There are bodies here too, not fresh. Some of them are Russians who stayed behind. Some are your own, from cavalry skirmishes outside the city. Most are neither. They're just part of the landscape now. You stop noticing after the first dozen. Your sense of smell gave up 2 weeks ago. Still, Napoleon enters the city like it matters. The officers try to make it official. Flags are raised. A few buildings are still intact. Some men cheer out of habit. You don't. You just sit down in a stairwell, breathing through a wool sleeve and staring at a fire that isn't warming anyone. Historians still argue whether the fires were deliberate acts of the Russian army or just the chaos of thousands fleeing. But to you, it doesn't matter. The city is useless. There's no food, no shelter, no quartering for winter. Just bricks and regrets. Napoleon issues orders, of course. He tries to make the city into a headquarters. You're told to stay sharp, stay in formation, stay ready. For what exactly? The army has conquered a ruin. You imagine it as a cruel parody of a wedding cake, all icing, no cake. At night, it's quieter than it should be. No music, no laughter. Just wind and coughing. The city groans as buildings collapse in the dark, and you flinch like someone just fired a cannon. Fires spread, sometimes from an ember caught in a roof beam. Sometimes you suspect by accident or boredom. You spend your days scavenging. Some lucky men find silverware. You find a brass door handle and briefly consider eating it. One officer claims to have found wine. He dies of dysentery 3 days later. No one is sure if it was the wine or something else. You write a letter home, or try to. Your fingers shake too much to write legibly. You smear ink across a scrap of scorched paper and give up halfway through. You tuck it inside your coat anyway, as if intention alone might carry it. One afternoon you spot a child, a real one, Russian. She's standing on the other side of a ruined market square, holding something, maybe a doll, maybe a bundle of cloth. She watches you without fear. Then she turns and disappears into an alley. You don't follow. You don't have the strength to chase ghosts. A rumor spreads that Napoleon's waiting for a Russian surrender. That's the punchline of the whole joke. He's convinced the Tsar will negotiate now that you've taken Moscow. And maybe he will. Maybe peace is coming any day now. Except days pass, and then more. And the snow falls. It starts one morning just a dusting, enough to make you wonder if you're dreaming. Then, later that day, it comes harder. You feel it in your scalp. First, cold needles finding the one patch of skin your hat doesn't cover. The world turns white at the edges like an old photograph. And that's when you hear the whispers. We're going back. No drums, no fanfare. Just tired voices, officers with drawn faces, hands rubbing their temples, like even saying the words costs energy they don't have. The retreat has begun. There's no formal announcement, no inspirational speech, just a slow, bitter shift in direction. You turn around almost absently, like someone flipping their pillow to the cold side. You stare back at the smoking ruins of Moscow one last time. This is what you came for, and now you're walking away. The snow thickens that night. Your breath comes in visible clouds. You huddle around a barrel fire with 8 other men, not for warmth, but to pretend you still deserve it. One man tries to tell a joke and forgets the punchline halfway through. You all laugh anyway. You'd laugh at anything right now, even this. You don't really leave Moscow, you just start walking and hope your feet still remember how. The streets are gray and silent as the city shrinks behind you, brick by brick, ember by ember, until even the smoke looks embarrassed to be hanging around. There's no formation, no strategy, just a long broken line of soldiers moving westward, trying not to think about the fact that they've seen winter now, and winter has seen them. The cold is real this time, not a chill, not a breeze. It's a presence. It creeps into your boots, your joints, your lungs. You breathe in, and it feels like you're inhaling glass. Your fingers barely respond anymore. You poke your comrade's shoulder, and he turns with eyes like polished stone wide, unreadable and a little bit gone. You've started walking like an automaton. There's no other way to do this. The rations, such as they are, don't arrive anymore. The supply wagons are stuck in mud or frost or abandoned altogether. You're down to what you can find, or steal, or imagine. Some men chew bark, others boil leather. A few talk about eating snow, but joke that it's too filling. You come across a burned village. The ruins are still warm. That means the Russians passed through recently. They're not gone, they're watching. They're patient. You're the one melting. Someone finds a single potato buried under ash. They lift it like treasure. Others gather around. The group stares. No one says a word. Eventually, it's cut into thin slices. 17 men each get a sliver so small you'd need a microscope to season it. You chew yours slowly like it's a steak. Each night is colder than the last. The fires get smaller. The wood runs out. So you burn whatever you can. Wooden wheels, old crates, a fence post someone dragged for miles. You burn a saddle, then a door, then someone's journal. You don't sleep anymore. You freeze slowly while pretending to rest. Then you hit Smolensk, or what's left of it. You pass through this place on the way east. It had buildings, people life. Now it's a shell. The buildings are pockmarked, the streets flooded with snow and ash. You camp outside the city because it offers no shelter now. Not really. It's just another burned husk on the retreat path, just another gravestone. Historians still argue whether burning Moscow truly broke the French campaign, or whether it was just one link in a frozen chain of disasters. You personally think it was the moment hope died. You reach Smolensk and feel nothing. That's how you know it's over. Napoleon finally gives a real order: abandon the wounded. He doesn't say it that way, of course. He says it in French with military flair and polished boots. But the meaning is clear. If you can't walk, you don't get a ride. If you can't fight, you don't get fed. The army can't afford compassion anymore. You pass a man with no boots. He's wrapped his feet in rags and stuffed them with straw. He smiles at you, lips cracked open. Warm enough, he says, and then he starts singing. Not a hymn, not a battle song, just some folk tune about cheese. He walks beside you for 2 hours and then lies down in a ditch. You don't stop. The Russians start showing up again. Not a full attack, just pokes, skirmishes, harassment. They know you're weak. They don't need to win, they just need to remind you that you're not alone out here. One night, a group of Cossacks rides through your column. It's chaos. Horses scream. Men scatter. You lose your pack and your bayonet. You don't even try to get them back. You're not sure what's worse, losing your weapon or realizing you weren't planning to use it anyway. You keep marching. One morning, the wind shifts and you smell meat. Actual meat. Real cooking. You follow the scent dazed like a cartoon character. A few men are crowded around a pot. There's a fire. There's a bubbling noise. You ask what it is. No one answers. You look closer and see the shape of a hoof floating in the broth. You don't ask whose horse it was. You don't ask who carved it. You just hold out your tin cup and wait your turn. That might have been the best meal you've had all month. And then come the sleds. The lucky officers have them. Wooden platforms with fur blankets pulled by the last surviving horses. You watch them glide past like royalty, cheeks pink from the cold eyes, carefully avoiding the rest of you. You wonder what it's like to be warm again. You wonder if they see you. One sled gets stuck in a ditch. You and 3 others help push it out, not out of kindness, but because the officer promised extra rations. When you're done, he hands you a piece of dry bread, no bigger than a child's fist. You eat it in one bite. The snow is everywhere now. It's in your ears. It's in your socks. It sneaks under your collar and sleeps beside your spine. Your breath turns into clouds and your voice disappears entirely. You communicate with nods, grunts, and long glassy stares. You've started seeing things. A building that isn't there. A dog that talks. A woman standing in the woods, smiling. You know none of it's real. That's the scary part, you know, and it doesn't help. One man starts laughing and doesn't stop. He's still laughing when he lies down in the snow and never moves again. A joke goes around the column. How do you know it's winter in Russia? Your tears freeze before they hit the ground. You don't laugh. You tried crying last night. Nothing came out. You pass a frozen pond. The ice is thin, but you try anyway. You chip at it with a bayonet handle and drink from the hole. It tastes like soil and iron and salvation. Someone else tries the same. The ice cracks. They disappear before anyone can grab them. You don't talk about it. You just keep marching. Because now, more than ever, that's all there is. Your feet are no longer your own. They belong to the cold now. You still feel them, sort of, but mostly as dull, tingling lumps attached to your legs. If you take off your boots, you risk not getting them back on. If you leave them on, you risk losing your toes. Either way, you're gambling with parts of yourself. And then, one morning, you lose. A tingling becomes a burn, and the burn becomes nothing. You press your fingers to your toes hard. No response. Your body's gone silent on that front. A man next to you, older, shrugs. Black by tomorrow, he mutters, chewing something that might be meat, might be leather. If they go black, you cut 'em off. If you wait too long, they take your whole leg. You don't ask how he knows. Frostbite becomes the first surgeon. You've heard that expression, whispered half joke, half warning. Now you live it. Fingers go numb and don't come back. Noses turn pale, then gray. Ears fall off mid-sentence. Literally. One man wakes up, shakes his head, and his ear drops into his lap. He stares at it more confused than horrified. At some point, someone produces a knife, not a bayonet. Those are useless now, but a small, clean blade. You watch as he heats it over. A flame bites a stick and amputates a toe. He doesn't scream. He just passes out afterward and sleeps for 12 hours straight. You're a little jealous. Your own toes. You haven't checked lately. You don't want to know. The air is no longer cold, it's hostile. It doesn't just sting your skin, it steals your breath. Every inhale hurts. Your nose bleeds when you rub it. Your lips crack like dried fruit. At night, the wind howls through whatever building you're sheltering in, if you're lucky enough to find a building. If not, you dig a hole in the snow and hope it doesn't fill in before morning. You've learned how to sleep with one eye open, not out of fear of the enemy, but of the cold. It creeps in during the night, subtle as guilt. 1 minute you're shivering, the next you're warm, cozy even. That's the danger sign. Everyone knows it. If you get too comfortable, someone has to slap you awake, or kick you, or pour snow down your back, because that warmth isn't safety, it's death, wrapping you in a soft blanket. Historians still argue whether it was poor preparation or blind arrogance that caused Napoleon to push this far into winter without proper gear. You vote for both. Whatever the cause, you and your comrades are now dressed for spring in the middle of a Russian blizzard. Your coat isn't thick enough. Your gloves are a pair of socks you've tied around your hands. Your scarf is a rag stolen from a dead man. And your hat, well, your hat is frozen into a new shape. It doesn't help, but you keep it because it feels like a small shred of identity. You start noticing the quiet. It's the kind of quiet that rings in your ears like the air is so cold, sound refuses to move. Even the birds are gone. All you hear is snow crunching underfoot, slow, rhythmic, sometimes interrupted by the collapse of a body into a drift. You don't stop for the fallen anymore. There's a rule now, unspoken but absolute. If someone drops and doesn't get back up in 10 seconds, they're not coming back. If they do get up, you help them. If not, you just keep going. One night you dream of a warm kitchen, bread, cheese, a fire. You wake up with your hand in your mouth, chewing your glove. You laugh about it. Then you stop laughing because your teeth hurt from the cold. Then you start laughing again because the sound feels strange, like it's coming from someone else's throat. You pass a line of trees and spot a man standing still, not collapsed, not walking, just standing. You approach cautiously and tap his shoulder. He doesn't move. His eyelids are frozen open, tiny icicles hanging from his lashes. You move on. Frost becomes a fashion trend. A dusting of snow on your shoulders, a rim of ice on your collar. You all look the same now, white, gray, stiff. Uniforms don't matter. Ranks don't matter. If you're standing, you're a soldier. If you're lying down, you're a monument. Occasionally the sky clears. For a moment the stars blaze above you, cold, merciless, brilliant. You stare at them and wonder how they can shine so brightly when you haven't seen the sun in days. A man beside you mutters something about angels. Another says it's just the cold hallucinating for you. You choose to believe both. You learn tricks to survive, how to keep snow out of your boots, how to breathe into your sleeves to warm your face, how to march just behind the biggest man in the group to block the wind, how to steal a sip of someone else's broth without being caught. Small things, petty maybe, but they matter now. A rumor spreads the Russian army is nearby, not attacking, just waiting. Waiting for you to freeze, to starve, to collapse. That's the strategy. Let the land do the killing. It's working. One day, a wagon breaks an axle and dumps its load bags of oats, rotting meat, a barrel of salt. A stampede erupts. Men dive, push, scream. Fights break out. Someone gets stabbed with a fork. When the dust settles, there's nothing left but footprints and a trail of blood. That night, you eat a frozen beet you found buried in a ditch. You can't taste it, but the crunch feels like victory. You wake up the next morning, missing 2 fingertips. You don't panic. You don't cry. You just nod like the weather sent you an invoice and you're paying in installments. This is what the Grand Armée has become, an army not of war, but of survival. Every man is now a soldier, a butcher, a medic, and a ghost. You trudge forward, because what else is there? You don't really remember when food stopped being food. Somewhere along the trail, maybe just past Smolensk, or near that nameless, half-burned village with the collapsed church, it all just changed. At first, it was hardtack, then stale bread, then leather, then snow. Now it's whatever doesn't kill you immediately. You crouch by a dying campfire with 3 other men, silent, hollowed-out shapes in uniforms that haven't looked French in weeks. Someone drops something into the pot. You don't ask what it is. You just wait for it to boil. The smell is horrifying. But then again, so is hunger. The flavor will be not air, and that's enough. Tonight, it's boot soup. Not a joke. Actual boot. You sawed it apart yourself. The leather strip curled in your hand like a tongue. You boiled it for hours with snow and a few mystery twigs. It doesn't soften. It just becomes less rubbery. The broth turns brownish gray. You sip it slowly, pretending not to gag. You even pretend you're eating something rich. Maybe beef stew, or no mushroom risotto. A man can dream. The others slurp in silence. Someone chews the heel and loses a tooth. Another curses Napoleon under his breath. You don't join in. Not because you don't agree, but because your mouth is too cold to move properly. Sometimes there's horse meat. Not from a live horse. Of course, those are long gone. But a dead one, that's gold. You find one frozen in a ditch, legs curled unnaturally breathless, and half buried under snow. The fight starts before the smell even hits. Men circle it like starving wolves. Knives come out, teeth too. Flesh is carved in strips, some frozen so hard they snap like wood. You cut off a chunk and roast it over fire. You don't think about the eyes. You don't think about the saddle still strapped to its back. You just chew and try not to taste anything at all. Historians still argue whether cannibalism happened during the retreat. They phrase it gently: unconfirmed reports, isolated incidents, logistical desperation. But you know better. You saw the way men looked at each other during the worst nights. You saw one group digging by a row of corpses, and not for graves. You saw what they cooked. You didn't eat any. Not that time. But you didn't stop them either. That's what this has become. A line of starved, frost-bitten shadows, willing to boil anything that doesn't scream. You heard someone tried boiling gunpowder once, just to see if it had calories. It didn't end well. You try trading a scrap of cloth for a crust of bread, a button for dried beans. Someone offers a bullet for a spoonful of lard. You trade your last coin for an onion the size of your thumb. It's frozen solid. You suck on it like candy for 3 hours. Every now and then, you smell something sweet. Burned sugar, maybe. Someone says it's just your brain hallucinating. You still follow the scent. It leads to a field where nothing grows. You laugh. A man next to you finds a beetle in the snow. He doesn't hesitate. He crunches it like it's a roasted chestnut. You ask how it tasted. He says, better than hope. That night you dig through the ashes of an abandoned fire pit. You find a sliver of something charred thin, unrecognizable. You sniff it. Smells like fat. Or soap. You pop it into your mouth and chew until it dissolves into nothing. You decide it was bacon. You decide not to question it. Some men get clever. They steal hoard-hide food in their sleeves. One man fills his hat with oats and wears it like a crown. It molds in 2 days. He cries when he throws it away. You begin rationing yourself mentally. 1 bite now, 1 bite in 10 miles. You tell yourself you're saving it. Really, you're just delaying the moment of disappointment. You remember meals from home, actual meals, bread with butter, wine, cheese, roasted meat. You remember apples, fresh fruit. You remember the smell of cinnamon. That memory alone almost makes you weep. One night a man pulls something from his coat, wrapped in linen. A secret. He unwraps it slowly and reveals a sausage. Real. Dried. He offers it around. No one speaks. It's passed from hand to hand, like communion. You get a piece no bigger than your thumb. You chew it so slowly, it nearly dissolves in your mouth. You thank him with your eyes. That sausage saves you for a day. Then it's back to snow. You try melting snow for water, but it takes so long, and the smoke burns your eyes, and half the time you spill it. Someone builds a funnel out of tin to collect icicles. Someone else tries squeezing frozen bark. You've begun eating charcoal. You heard somewhere it helps with stomach sickness. You don't know if that's true, but you figure it can't make things worse. You dream of sugar. You wake up to chewing sounds. It's just a rat. Someone else is trying to catch it. You hope they fail, so you can try next. There are moments, small, strange miracles where you laugh. Maybe someone finds a beat. Maybe someone passes gas and blames it on Napoleon. Maybe someone draws a mustache on a dead officer's face using ash. You cling to these things like gold, because there's nothing else left to hold. And still you walk. You walk with an empty stomach, a hollow chest, and a piece of boot in your pocket you might chew later. Because out here, soup from a boot isn't a metaphor. It's dinner. You don't remember when the man next to you died. Maybe it was last night. Maybe yesterday morning. Maybe 2 days ago. You'd been leaning against each other, backs pressed for warmth, heads down against the wind. At some point, his breathing stopped, and you didn't notice, because you were still alive, and barely, just barely, that still meant something. Now you're wearing his coat. It's not stealing, it's survival. That's the unspoken law out here. The dead don't need their boots, their gloves, their bread crusts, their belts. You do. And if it were the other way around, you wouldn't expect a second of hesitation. The coat smells like smoke and fear. You pull it tighter. The march never ends. It doesn't speed up. It doesn't slow down. It just is. You walk because the men ahead of you walk. They walk because the men ahead of them walk. No one knows where Napoleon is, or if he's still out there. The man himself might have wings and be flying home by now, for all you care. You haven't seen an officer in 2 days. You have seen crows, though. They follow the army now. Fat, confident things. You used to wave them off. Now you ignore them. They're part of the landscape. They wait in trees, on fences, on frozen corpses, always nearby, always watching. You envy them sometimes. They can fly away. They don't freeze. They eat well. One lands on the body of a drummer boy who's face down in the snow. It pecks once, twice. You look away. You wonder how many men are left. You started with hundreds of thousands. Now it feels like hundreds, maybe. The line is thinner every day, like a thread. Unraveling, you can see through it in places. You pass through a town, or what used to be a town. A pile of stones, blackened walls, a single church tower stubbornly upright. A bell hangs at the top covered in frost. No one rings it. The silence is too loud already. You pause long enough to scavenge. Someone finds half a bag of oats, frozen solid. Another finds a dog skeleton. not useful. You try kicking down a door for firewood. The door kicks back, frozen stiff. You settle for a broken chair leg. At night, the snow reflects the moonlight in a way that feels cruel, too beautiful for a place like this. It glows blue-white, soft and serene, like a blanket stretched over graves. Someone suggests singing. No one does. You lie down in the snow under what used to be a wagon and close your eyes for just a second. Just a moment. Just a slap across your face brings you back. It's a fellow soldier. He doesn't say a word, just slaps you again, hard. You blink, grunt, try to sit up. He moves on. You were starting to freeze. That's how it starts falling asleep. It feels good. It always feels good. That's why it kills so many. You whisper a thank you. You doubt he hears. You pass another man later, arms folded across his chest, sitting upright like he's waiting for a carriage. His eyes are open. Snow clings to his eyelashes. He doesn't blink. You check for warmth. Nothing. You check for food. Nothing. You take his gloves. You don't feel guilty. You can't afford to. They fit. You think about home sometimes. It hits you without warning. The smell of firewood, the way your mother folded sheets, the bakery down the street. You try to picture it, but the colors are gone. Everything in your head is white and gray now. You see your sister's face. Then it's gone again. The memory skips like a broken record. You pass through a forest, or what's left of one. Most of the trees have been stripped for firewood. Branches, snapped trunks scarred by knives. It's a forest that looks like it's been mugged, but it still offers shelter from the wind, so you walk between the trees like a ghost. A man ahead of you slips on ice and lands hard. He doesn't get up. You wait. Nothing. You move on. You're technically still alive, but you're starting to feel like a marching corpse. You haven't spoken in hours, maybe days. No one has. Language takes energy, so you communicate with grunts, nods, gestures, sometimes a pointed finger, sometimes just eye contact. That's enough. You come across a wagon, abandoned, frozen in place, half buried in snow. You pry it open. Inside a frozen goat carcass. You've never seen men move so fast. Someone produces a hatchet. Someone else finds a pan. Fire is started with dry cloth and a prayer. You eat goat that night. Real food. It's tough, frozen, and tastes faintly of wood. Best meal of your life. You wake up the next morning with stomach cramps so bad you think you're dying. Maybe you are, but they pass. Eventually. The sky turns gray again. The snow thickens. The crows follow. The line of soldiers keeps moving. You're not sure where you're going anymore. But you know this. You're not marching toward anything now. You're just marching away from death and hoping he walks slower than you. There's a lie someone told you once, probably back in France, that said Napoleon never retreats. It sounded bold, heroic, maybe even comforting. But now as you march west, through knee-high snow ribs, visible through your uniform, the skin on your cheeks split open from windburn, you realize that was nonsense. This is a retreat. A full-blown, desperate, no plans, just run retreat. Napoleon calls it a strategic repositioning. The officers still parrot his lines, trying to salvage some dignity, but no one's fooled. Not the men, not the horses, not even the crows overhead. Everyone knows the truth. Now you're fleeing, just trying to make it out of Russia with something that vaguely resembles an army. The snow has stopped falling for now, but that's not a comfort. It's just a different kind of bad. Without the snowflakes in the air, the sky feels emptier, like even the weather gave up trying to decorate this nightmare. The wind slices through the line like a blade, and your coat, double layered with rags, and someone else's scarf may as well be paper. There's an edge to the silence these days. Not peace, not quiet, more like exhaustion. The kind of hush that creeps in after a scream, like the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to give up. Someone behind you stumbles. A musket clatters to the ground, buried halfway in slush. No one stops. The man mutters a curse, but it's weak. He doesn't pick the gun up. He just keeps walking. You haven't seen Napoleon himself in weeks, maybe longer. Word has it he's still ahead of you somewhere, riding in a covered sleigh, dictating letters to Paris about how the campaign is under control. Historians still argue whether Napoleon grasped how catastrophic things had become, or whether he simply refused to look down from his perch. It doesn't matter to you. All that matters now is distance, how far to the next fire, to the next patch of dry ground, to the next chance you might not die today. There's no map anymore. The path is a mixture of rumors, desperation, and whichever road looks the least deadly. Entire companies are splitting off, disappearing into the woods, hoping to find a shortcut home or a less miserable end. Desertion isn't a crime anymore. It's just a career change. You think about it more than once. There's a crossroads up ahead. The road west curves left toward Berezina. The other one, who knows? Maybe Lithuania. Maybe nowhere. You pause. Look at both. And then your legs move forward, not because of loyalty, but because the idea of choosing anything feels too heavy. The line is moving, so you move too. Someone tried to desert last night. You don't know who, just that in the morning a corpse was tied to a tree at the edge of camp with a sign pinned to his chest. For cowards, the ink froze mid-drip. His boots were gone. You take the message to heart mostly because the boots were a good size. Food is even scarcer now. The rations, if you can call them that, are sometimes nothing more than gray broth, served from the bottom of a barrel. You watch an officer scoop out the last spoonful and lick the ladle before handing it to the next man. No one flinches. You once saw a rat and didn't try to kill it. You begged it to bite you, just to feel something. You pass a frozen river and spot tracks Russian scouts maybe, or wolves, or both. You don't really care anymore. If the Russians attacked, they'd be doing some of you a favor. One of the wagons gets stuck in a ditch. The officer shouts for help. 4 men trudge over to lift it. 2 collapse from the effort. The 3rd vomits. The 4th just walks away. The officer fires a shot into the air. No one reacts. Another day, another blur of white and gray. You start seeing things, figures in the snow, warm homes that vanish when you get close, voices in your ears that whisper in languages you don't speak. You know they're not real. Doesn't matter. You listen anyway. At least they're company. You reach a village. This one's different. It hasn't been burned, not yet. A few buildings stand. There's a barn, a well, a church that looks intact. You stagger in like you've found paradise. A fire is started. Walls block the wind. You laugh a dry, rasping sound you didn't know you still had. You share space with 12 other men crammed together like books on a shelf. But it's warm, and that's a miracle. Then morning comes, and it's time to leave again. You don't want to. No one does. The officers shout and no one moves. Eventually, someone threatens to shoot, and a few groans rise as men stand. You consider staying, dying in that barn, quietly. But your feet betray you, like always, and start walking. The snow is deeper now. You lift your legs like they're made of iron. Each step is a sentence in a story you stopped caring about. No heroics, no music. Just one more footprint toward whatever's left of France. You hear a man say, "I'll never forget this." Another replies, "I hope I do." You don't say anything. You're too busy breathing in pain and exhaling memory. You cross another hill. More men behind you. Fewer every day. But still they come. Still retreating, still alive. Technically. You reach the Berezina River and instantly regret every choice that brought you here. It's wide. It's cold. It's swollen with ice and wrath and the ghosts of better armies. On the opposite bank, freedom glitters like a fever dream. Belarus, Lithuania, home. But between you and that dream lies a churning expanse of misery. The Russians are closing in from behind. The river blocks the way forward. And you're somewhere in the middle holding a musket that hasn't worked in weeks and a stomach that hasn't been full since autumn. There's talk of building bridges, pontoon bridges, someone says with a straight face. You laugh a sound more bark than joy, because you've seen the wood splintered, frozen, soaked. There's nothing to build with except desperation and a prayer to an uncaring sky. Still, Napoleon gives the order, and so they begin. Engineers, some of them French, some Polish, working under fire, under frost, under the kind of pressure that breaks teeth from the inside. They hammer together makeshift pontoons in icy water with frozen hands and dying horses strapped to ropes for weight. 2 bridges, one for infantry, one for carts and cannons. 2 chances, that's all. You wait your turn like you're in line at a bakery, except the croissants are bullets, and the coffee is the screams of men drowning. The banks are chaos. Soldiers packed shoulder to shoulder, shoving, crying, praying. You grip the stock of your musket, not because you think you'll fight, but because it's something to hold, something to remind you you're not a shadow yet. The Russians appear behind you. Their cannons boom from the tree line and the ground shakes like it's trying to throw you off. Shells crash into the riverbank. The man next to you loses his arm without making a sound. He just looks at the stump in wonder, like he's unsure if it's his. You crouch, then crawl, then get up again, because if you lie down, you freeze or get trampled. Or both. One of the bridges collapses. Too much weight, too much ice. A surge of men, hundreds, are thrown into the freezing water. You hear the splash first, then the screaming. The ice closes over them like a lid. You don't look. You can't afford to. You're pushed forward. A lieutenant screams something incomprehensible. You follow orders, out of habit, not belief. And then it's your turn. The bridge beneath your boots wobbles like a dying breath. The planks creak. Gaps appear between beams. You don't look down. You don't think. You just step, 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 moving forward over a river that wants you dead. The wind bites. Ice pelts your face. Musket balls skip off the water like stones. You watch a cannon cart topple into the river, dragging 2 horses and a driver with it. The reins snap like whips. You make it across, somehow. You don't remember how. Just that your boots hit the far bank and you fall to your knees, not in relief, but in shock. Your breath comes in steam. Your hands are bleeding. Your right boot is missing the sole. You're alive. For now. Behind you, the bridge burns. Napoleon ordered it torched. The engineers soaked it in pitch and set it alight to keep the Russians from following. You watch the flames eat the last path east. The river roars approval. Historians still argue whether the Berezina crossing was a tactical stroke of genius or a last-ditch flailing of a doomed emperor. Some call it a miracle of survival. Others call it a massacre with a map. You don't care what they call it. You just know it nearly killed you. You join the survivors, a ragged, frost-bitten trail of men, too tired to celebrate. No cheers, no songs, just breathing. Shallow, grateful, miserable breathing. You walk again, of course. West, always west. There's no longer any talk of Moscow, or victory, or Napoleon really. You haven't seen him. You heard he crossed the bridge first, then watched from a distance while men drowned. You try not to think about that. You still carry a spoon. That's your most valuable possession now. You stole it from a dead officer 3 weeks ago, and it's the only reason you're able to eat when there's anything to eat. You sleep with it under your coat, like it's a relic. You've stopped counting the days. Your internal calendar is measured in Burns bites and how long you can walk before the hunger makes you see stars. Someone starts humming a tune from home. Quiet, almost embarrassed. You let it drift over you like warmth. The man next to you weeps softly. He's missing a shoe and a tooth, and judging by the 1,000-yard stare, a few pieces of his soul. Still he weeps, because you made it across, because you shouldn't have, because too many didn't. The road is open again, if you can call it a road, more like a corridor of footprints and frozen memories. You march on it silently toward a home that feels impossibly far. But for the first time in weeks, the worst might be behind you. You're not safe, but you're not dead. And in this army, that's as close to a victory as you'll ever get. You try to fire your musket one morning just to see if it still works. It doesn't. The lock mechanism is frozen solid, a tiny chunk of ice lodged behind the hammer. You tap it gently, then harder. Nothing. The barrel, once sleek and polished, now looks like a rusted flute. You check your powder. It's damp, of course. Everything is damp. Powder flint, even the inside of your gloves. You've been carrying a musket for months now, dragging it across swamps, over hills, through snowdrifts. It weighs about 9 pounds, but it may as well be made of lead. And now when you finally want to shoot something, anything, it just sits in your hands like a frozen stick. You laugh, quietly. The sound of it surprises you. You consider throwing it away, just tossing it into a ditch and walking lighter. But then you think, what if it's the only thing keeping you from being shot in the back? Not by Russians, by your own men, or worse, by someone who wants your boots. So you sling it over your shoulder and keep marching. It's useless now, but so is everything else. That's no reason to let go. Around you, other soldiers are having the same realization. Muskets, click, snap, fail. Some men don't even bother testing theirs anymore. They just carry them like ceremonial relics, symbols of a war that's now just about walking and waking up tomorrow. Someone tries to fix his flintlock with a bit of twine and a prayer. He gets it to spark once, then it breaks entirely. He stares at it like it betrayed him, then tosses it into a snowbank. You think about following suit. Then you trip over a cannon, not firing, not guarded, just lying there, half submerged in snow, coated in frost wheels, frozen in place. It looks like it died weeks ago. You stare at it for a long time. This thing, this monstrous iron barrel, used to be the heart of the army, the thunder at the front lines, the show of strength that cleared enemy ranks and earned Napoleon his glory. Now, it's a dead animal, and no one even bothers to dig it out. Cannons dot the roadside, abandoned where they froze, some with broken spokes, some tipped over, some half-eaten by rust and time. You pass them like monuments to a world that stopped caring. Artillery teams are gone, now their horses long dead or eaten. The limbers are shattered, the wheels warped. You hear someone joke that even the cannons are cold. No one laughs. Someone else whispers that Napoleon was furious when the first cannon was left behind. that he screamed at the officers, called it shameful. That was before the 4th or the 10th. Now it's just accepted, like everything else. Historians still debate how much artillery was lost during the retreat. Some say hundreds of guns, others insist the count is lower. You don't care. You just know you step around cannonballs like rocks, and nobody blinks. You see a man with a bayonet trying to pry the wheel off a frozen caisson. He's muttering to himself. You approach slowly, thinking he might have food. He stops, breathes hard, then leans against the frozen wood like he's hugging it. You walk on. That night you share a shelter with 6 other men in the ruins of a farmhouse. The roof is gone. The walls are half standing, but the stones hold some warmth from a small fire. One of the men has a flint that still works. He guards it like treasure. You all take turns warming your fingers, one by one. You don't talk. Just sit in the circle arms, folded heads low, like monks praying over a relic. Your musket rests beside you. You realize looking at it that it's become your walking stick, your sleeping pole, your tent post. It's everything but a weapon now. That fact doesn't upset you. It feels honest. The next day you wake to wind. It howls through the broken doorframe like it's trying to sing. You wrap yourself in everything you own, but it's not enough. It never is. You start walking just to keep the blood moving. Someone ahead of you drops their weapon, not from attack, just weakness. Their hands gave out. It clatters against a rock. No one turns around. You keep moving. You pass a tree and spot musket barrels leaning against it like someone tried to grow a metal orchard. Maybe a whole squad dumped their arms there, one by one, deciding they'd rather carry food if they had any. You consider adding yours to the tree. But again, habit wins. You pass another cannon. This one looks almost majestic, perched on a hill, with the snow piled gently around it. The barrel faces east, back toward Moscow, as if it still hopes to fire one last shot. You pause, salute it, not out of respect, out of boredom. You press on. You reach a crossroads. There's a sign, but it's too weather-worn to read. One direction leads to a burned-out village, the other to the forest. You follow the others without asking where. The path of least resistance. The musket on your back bounces gently with every step. You hum just a little. One man beside you falls. His musket slides across the snow. He doesn't pick it up. He doesn't move. Another soldier picks it up, studies it, shrugs, and tosses it into a bush. The rest of the march is quiet. Your weapon, your heavy, frozen, rusting burden, is still with you, not because it's useful, not because it's honorable, but because it's the only thing that hasn't left you yet. You're walking through woods now, dense, cold, and unnaturally quiet. The snow muffles everything, turning each step into a ghost of sound. Branches creak overhead, the kind of creak that makes you glance up just in case something decides to fall on you. You're not sure if you want it to. And then you hear it a howl, low, distant but unmistakable. Wolves. You freeze not from the cold, but from that ancient tickle of fear in your spine. The kind that whispers you're not alone out here anymore. The other men hear it too. A few stop walking, a few don't. Maybe they didn't hear it, or maybe they just don't care anymore. There's another howl, closer this time. You grip your useless musket like it's a club. Your eyes scan the tree line. Snow falls in clumps from branches, making it harder to see what's real. The shadows between the trunks are deep and full of maybes. Nothing comes. Yet, a man next to you mutters something in a dialect you don't recognize. His eyes are wide. His fingers twitch. You don't ask him to translate. You understand the mood. The wolves have been following you for days, maybe weeks, always just out of sight. They pick off the stragglers, the ones who fall behind the ones who sit down just for a minute. You've heard the screams. Short, wet final, and not always from animals. Because it's not just the wolves. You've started hearing whispers at night. Not conversations, not words, just whispers. Like the forest is talking, or breathing, or remembering something it once lost. You sit by a fireless camp one evening and hear it again. A long, drawn-out hush that snakes between trees. You turn to ask the man next to you if he heard it, but he's already looking at you, wide-eyed, pale. He nods. You both hear it. You don't speak the rest of the night. The cold has made everything brittle. Trees crack in the night like musket fire. You flinch each time. Your nerves are frayed like old rope. A few men jump at every sound. One fires a shot into the woods. The powder fizzles. Nothing happens. But the sound, what little of it existed, vanishes. The forest holds its breath. Later that same night, something brushes against your leg while you sleep. You jolt awake, heart-hammering breath, fogging. You see nothing. You wait, muscles clenched, frost coating your lashes. A branch, a shadow. You never find out. The next morning, a soldier is gone. His pack is still there. His blanket, too. But no footsteps, no trail. Just an empty spot in the snow, like someone erased him with a giant thumb. No one says a word. You start walking. That's the rule now. You don't investigate. You don't linger. You don't ask questions. You walk and hope that whatever's watching prefers someone else. There are more howls today. At least 4. You count them. One seems close enough that you half expect to see glowing eyes through the frost. But again, nothing. Still, you know they're there. Historians still argue whether wolves really preyed on Napoleon's retreating army, or if the stories are just exaggerated legends. But you've heard the teeth snapping behind trees. You've seen the corpses with torn sleeves and missing limbs. If wolves didn't do it, then something worse did. One night, a man sits down to remove his boots. They're soaked stiff with ice. His feet are purple-black, He curses, crying softly, fingers fumbling. You offer him your scarf to wrap them. He looks at you like you've just given him gold. The next morning he's gone, just like that. Scarf and all, you never get it back. You're not sure what happened. Wolves cold. Or maybe he just decided he was done. Maybe he walked into the woods and didn't stop. Either way, he's not the first. And he won't be the last. Another night, another camp. No fire this time, no wood. You gather in a circle for body heat. 12 men. By morning, you count 10. You didn't hear anything, you never do. You just wake up to fewer voices, fewer footprints, fewer reasons to pretend it's going to get better. Your mind starts playing tricks on you. You think you see faces in the bark, shapes in the snow. You think you hear someone calling your name far off, just out of sight. You turn. Nothing. Once you see yourself, not in a mirror, those are long gone, but in a frozen puddle, a warped reflection, pale sunken eyes like ink spots. You lean closer and whisper, "Is that really me?" The reflection doesn't answer. The road twists through a clearing. Snow drifts high against the trees. Ahead, there's a pile of uniforms. No bodies, just uniforms. Coats, boots, torn pieces of cloth, laid out, neat, like someone undressed in the middle of the woods and vanished. You step around them. You don't ask. You just walk. The wolves follow. The whispers continue. And somewhere between fear and frostbite, you start wondering if you're the one who doesn't exist anymore. By now, staying alive has become a full-time job, and a miserable one at that. But there are some men, maybe more than you'd like to admit, who've decided to retire early. Desertion is no longer shocking. It's not even rare. Every day, a few more quietly vanish into the woods, over a ridge, or behind a crumbled stone wall, leaving behind their packs, their muskets, their names. No one stops them. No one chases. No one even speaks of it. Because the truth is, you've thought about it too. There's a rhythm to this retreat now. Wake up, count your fingers and toes, squint at the horizon, and decide whether it's worth it to keep going. Most days, the answer is barely. Your boots are worn through. Your socks, what's left of them, are holes tied together by frost. Your last usable button fell off 3 days ago. You've wrapped twine around your coat to hold it shut. You're walking with your head down, not from shame or fatigue, but because the wind keeps stabbing at your face like a bored knife. A man beside you stops walking. He looks around, blinks slowly, then turns and starts walking in the opposite direction. No one says a word. One man, an old veteran from Italy, someone you'd shared soup with weeks ago, finally announces he's done. He says it calmly, like he's calling it a night at the pub. He steps off the road, finds a dry patch under a tree, and sits down with his back against the trunk. That's it. He doesn't cry. He doesn't wave. He just opts out. The next morning, his place in the line is filled by silence. Historians still debate how many men actually deserted during the retreat. Some say thousands. Others think it was far more. But nobody argues this after Berezina, the Grand Armée, stops feeling like an army. It becomes a string of individuals pretending to be a unit. Everyone's in it for himself now. You start watching for signs, little flickers of departure. The man who starts walking slower, the one who checks his boots every 5 minutes like he's trying to justify giving up. The ones who say things like, "If I just had one more night indoors, or I know a shortcut." They don't need shortcuts. They just need exits. Some go dramatically screaming at the sky, throwing their gear into the snow, cursing Napoleon, France, and the sun for good measure. Others go quietly, peacefully, like slipping beneath a bath that never had water in it to begin with. You keep walking because something in you is too stubborn to stop. Maybe it's hope. Maybe it's cowardice. Maybe it's muscle memory. You're not sure anymore. But you have noticed that fewer and fewer officers remain. Those who do cling to their dignity like it's the last dry cloth on a sinking ship. Their uniforms are tattered now. Their epaulets stripped, their voices hoarse from shouting at no one. One tries to rally the group. Hold fast, men. Napoleon commands it. He's met with hollow stares. Another soldier replies, "Let him come. Say it himself." The officer doesn't answer. He adjusts his collar and walks on. You pass another village, this one half buried in snow. There's a barn, a broken cart, a door swinging in the wind. You huddle there for a few hours. One man starts talking about staying. "We could just live here," he says. "Fix the roof, hunt rabbits, wait it out." You look at him, then at the barn. Roofless wall, cracked floor, frozen solid, and realize he's not joking. You don't stay. But some of the others do. The line thins even more. There are also those who don't leave, who stay, but in other ways, quieter ways. Their bodies keep walking, but their minds have curled up somewhere warm and never returned. You see it in their eyes, vacant, glossy, like looking into a room where the lights are off and no one's home. They eat when told. They walk when pushed. They sleep when collapsed. But they're not really there anymore. One man marches for an entire day with an icicle stuck in his hair. Doesn't notice. Another hums the same 3 notes of a lullaby for hours, over and over, even in his sleep. You try to block it out, but it gets inside your head. You wonder if the army will notice when you finally go, if anyone will mark the moment you stop being a soldier and start being scenery. You doubt it. Desertion used to be a word you said with venom, treason, cowardice. Now it's just a footnote, an escape plan. Someone says they're going to try to make it south. Warmer lands, maybe Poland. Maybe they'll find shelter. Maybe they'll trade their uniform for civilian clothes and melt into some sleepy town where no one asks questions. You nod. You say good luck. They vanish by dawn. Later that day, a pack of dogs follows the column for a few miles. Not wolves. These are mangy, thin former pets. They keep their distance, sniffing at what's left behind. When a man collapses and doesn't rise, the dogs don't rush. They just wait. You keep walking, but you feel their eyes. There's a phrase soldiers start using. I'm still here. It means nothing and everything. It means I'm walking. I haven't dropped. I haven't vanished. I'm not one of them yet. You say it to yourself once. Whisper it like a charm. I'm still here. And for one more mile, you are. The Emperor is still riding. That's the rumor anyway. You haven't seen him. No one has, not since the smoke and madness of the Berezina. But word trickles down through the ranks, passed along like a fairy tale. Napoleon is still with us. He's ahead planning, still leading, still riding, and his horse. Apparently, the Emperor's horse is in better shape than most of the men. Fed, groomed, blanketed, a walking contradiction in a line of starvation. You picture him riding through the frost like some kind of ghost, plumed hat, clean gloves, high collar face, unreadable. Or maybe not. Maybe he's in a sleigh now, wrapped in furs, lips chapped from issuing impossible orders, wondering how it all went so perfectly wrong. No one dares speak against him openly, not yet. But the murmurs are louder, the glances sharper. Someone mutters that he left Moscow too late. Someone else says he abandoned the Polish reinforcements. Another insists Napoleon has already slipped away back to France, and this whole parade of agony is just the leftovers. Historians still argue whether Napoleon's decision to flee ahead of the army was tactical or cowardly. You don't argue. You just know he's not here in the snow, with you bleeding from cracked hands and chewing on frozen onions like they're gourmet rations. One day, a staff officer rides past your group. Real uniform, epaulettes, a horse that still has some meat on its bones. You blink at the sight of it. It feels like watching a unicorn stroll through a junkyard. The officer doesn't look at you, just keeps riding fast and quiet, kicking up snow. Looking for the Emperor, someone jokes. He's probably looking for the road home. Someone else replies. You smile, just a little. A soldier beside you has a portrait of Napoleon, a miniature painted before the invasion. He pulls it out sometimes when morale dips below freezing. The Emperor looks young in it, sharp eyes, perfect posture, mouth set like iron. He doesn't look cold, you say. The man doesn't laugh. He just tucks it away and keeps marching. You wonder what Napoleon is thinking now. If he's writing letters, if he's furious, if he's planning another war, if he's sitting in a warm room with maps and meat and wine while you chew on your sleeve and watch your breath freeze in front of you. The officers who are still here are different now. Their voices don't carry. Their shoulders slump. The shine is gone from their brass. You hear one weep behind a crumbled wall. Thinking no one can hear, you don't mention it. Everyone is allowed one collapse per week. Yours was yesterday. Some men still cling to discipline. They polish buttons, shave with melted snow, Stand for roll call even when no one's calling names. Rituals, you think, little islands of order in a sea of madness. But mostly, the army has become a rumor of itself. You pass by a soldier perched on an overturned barrel. He's writing something on a scrap of cloth ink made from soot and melted ice. What's that, you ask? A poem, he replies. You blink. You write poetry, not before. He keeps writing. You keep walking. A few steps later you realize you should have asked him to read it. Napoleon's name still shows up in whispers like a spell. Some say he'll send reinforcements. Others say he's already in Vilnius, waiting with hot soup and dry blankets. You hope they're right. You know they're not. You spot something on the path ahead, a white flag tied to a stick. It's stuck in a snowbank beside a frozen corpse. A message, a joke. You don't ask. Someone near the front of your group starts humming the French national anthem. Quietly, like a prayer. A few others join. The sound spreads like heat. But you don't sing, you're too tired. You remember when that song meant pride, glory, empire. Now it sounds like an elegy. You camp that night under a crumbling stone arch, what used to be a granary maybe. You and 7 others curl beneath it, using straw and cloaks to block the wind. Someone lights a tiny fire, more smoke than flame. You all lean in like moths. A man tells a story about Napoleon's early campaigns. Italy, Egypt, glory days. His voice is soft, dreamy, as if he's telling a child's bedtime tale. You fall asleep during it. When you wake, 2 of the men are gone. You don't ask where. In the morning, as you shoulder your useless musket and stretch aching limbs, you spot something strange, a trail of hoofprints, fresh, sharp-edged, leading ahead. Napoleon's horse, maybe. The prints vanish into the snow 2 miles later. But for those 2 miles you feel something unusual, almost like hope. There's a fire ahead. You see the glow before you hear the crackle. Orange, flickering behind a clump of skeletal trees, smoke rising into the gray sky like the last pulse of a dying heart. Instantly, the pace of the line changes. Men pick up speed. They don't run. Not yet, but they move with purpose. Fire means warmth. Fire means life. Even if only for a few minutes. You approach closer now and realize there's only one fire and about 50 men surrounding it. They're packed tight, shoulder to shoulder, knees almost touching the flames. Faces hollowed by frost and hunger, clothes stiff with ice. But they lean toward the heat like worshippers, hands outstretched, eyes closed. You take a few steps closer. No one moves. There's no room. You stand just outside the circle, shivering. 1 foot in snow, the other halfway to despair. You try to edge an elbow first, muttering just for a second, but no one makes space. These men aren't cruel. They're simply done pretending there's enough fire for everyone. Eventually, someone leaves, dragging a half-dead body behind him. maybe a friend, maybe a stranger. You step into the gap. Your knees hit the frozen ground. The warmth hits your face like a soft slap. You want to cry. You don't. You just hold your hands out and whisper, thanks. It's the kind of fire you'd call small back home. Pathetic even. A child's campfire. But here it's a kingdom, and you are a beggar at the gate. Someone tosses on a bundle of sticks. Someone else adds a strip of horse leather. The flames leap higher, then settle. The smoke stings your eyes, but you don't care. You'd bathe in it if you could. The fire doesn't judge, it just burns. You look around, every man here is like you, hollow-eyed, bone-thin, wrapped in rags. One holds his hands so close his nails curl. Another rocks back and forth, whispering something in German. You don't understand the words, but you recognize the tone. Please don't go out. Please don't go out. And still the fire crackles, for now. You offer a crust of bread to the man beside you. He stares at it confused, then takes it with trembling fingers. He doesn't say thank you, just nods. That's enough. Another man mutters a story, something about his village, his wife, a river he used to fish from. He speaks like he's reading from a letter he never got to send. You nod along, even though you stopped listening. The words are just noise now, background music for the fire. Then a gust of wind hits. The flames flicker, lean sideways. Panic spreads like a shiver. Men close ranks, shielding the fire with their bodies. Someone sacrifices a glove to feed it. Someone else burns a page from a Bible. No one blinks. Survival has no hierarchy. Historians still debate how much of the Grand Armée survived on stolen wood, torn fabric, and the ghosts of abandoned wagons. They never mention the fires, not properly, but you'll never forget them. Not the heat, but the hunger for heat. Eventually, your turn ends. The fire is too small, the crowd too big. A silent understanding, you've been warm long enough. You rise, stumble, step back into the snow. The cold returns like an old enemy, slipping through the seams in your coat, licking your ears, biting your fingertips. You whisper a curse. The man beside you nods, as if agreeing with the sentiment, even though you didn't say it out loud. Someone else takes your place at the fire, and the cycle continues. That night, you dream of warmth. Not just fire, but real warmth. A feather bed, thick blankets, a stew pot. You wake up with your hand buried under your shirt, pressed against your ribs like you're trying to keep your heart from freezing. Your fingertips are numb again. You rub them hard until you feel the pins and needles. Better than nothing. You join the others for the morning march, eyes sunken, breath clouding in front of your face like you're always just one step from disappearing. Someone collapses mid-stride. Another man stops, lifts him under the arms. Together they walk 10 more steps. Then the collapsed man pulls away, falls again, and waves the other on. There is no drama, just resignation. The man walking away doesn't look back, you understand. Later that day, you find another fire. Smaller. Just embers. You huddle around it with 3 strangers. You don't talk. You barely look at each other. You just let the heat kiss your palms. And for one brief moment, you remember what it felt like to be human. The embers dim. You move on. The path ahead is white and cold. But somewhere there might be another fire. And that's enough. There's a moment every evening now, just as the last gray light slips behind the treetops when your mind drifts toward home. Not because you're hopeful, but because there's nothing left to think about here. So, you imagine a letter, one you'd write if you could, one that might survive the snow and smoke and reach the hands it was meant for, even if those hands gave up hoping. A long time ago, you picture it, to my brother or mother or anyone who still believes I'm alive. But then the ink freezes before the second line, or the wind rips the page away, or your fingers seize up and you forget what you were trying to say. Most don't even try anymore. Some do write hunched over knee, using charcoal or rust or stolen ink. Scraps of fabric become stationery. Inside coat linings are full of half-finished goodbyes. You know one man who tattooed names into his skin with a knife and ash, just in case they found him, just in case someone cared. One night, while camped beneath a split fence, you find a bundle of cloth beside a body. Inside it, wrapped like treasure, are 3 letters, none finished, none signed. One starts, "My dearest Marie." Another just says, "Tell them I." The third is blank. You fold them back gently and place them on the chest of the man who carried them. His eyes are closed. He looks like he might still be dreaming. Then you walk on, because that's what you do now. You walk. The idea of home has become slippery. Not untrue, just distant. Like a fire at the edge of a storm, you want it, but you don't quite believe in it anymore. You pass a man reciting names to himself, over and over. Julien, Henri, Louise. A list of people. Memories you don't ask. He doesn't look up. Another has carved something into the ice with a bayonet tip, a cross, a heart, a symbol you don't recognize. It's already half covered by falling snow. By morning, it's gone. Historians still argue how many letters were written during the retreat, how many reached their destinations, how many were never found. But you know this. The cold didn't just freeze fingers, it froze stories. Thousands of them, lost in snowdrifts, under dead bodies, in the linings of rotted coats. Some men try to dictate letters aloud, as if the sky might carry them. Tell Mother, I'm trying. Tell my son, he'll understand someday. Tell my wife, I'm sorry for taking this path. No one writes it down, but you remember it, because someone should. You think about the people back home sitting in candlelight, opening letters that stop mid-sentence, or never arrive, or arrive with a different handwriting, and officers polite and dry. We regret to inform you. You imagine your own family at dinner. One chair, empty. Maybe they've already assumed the worst. Maybe that's easier. At the next camp, a man offers you a sliver of paper and a stub of pencil. Write something, he says. Anything. Doesn't have to be smart. You stare at the paper for a long time. Then you write, "I'm still here. For now." You don't know who it's for. You just fold it and tuck it under your shirt. You tell yourself someone might find it one day, that it might mean something. Or maybe it won't. You walk on. The roads blur together now. Trees, smoke, frozen ruts. Everything is white and gray and the color of waiting. You start seeing signs again, actual signs, road markers, milestones, the edges of civilization creeping back into your world. One says, Vilnius, 40 kilometers. Another says, nothing at all. Its letters worn away by time and frost. But they mean something. They mean somewhere still exists beyond this. You hear men talking about Vilnius like it's paradise. Food, shelter, medical aid, a warm stable, even rumors of soup. You don't believe any of it, but you listen anyway. Hope at this point is a habit you haven't managed to quit. At night, huddled in a ditch, you try writing again. Just one line. If you're reading this, I made it. Then your pencil snaps. And that's the end of that. You fall asleep with the paper tucked in your glove. In your dream, you're home. The floor creaks. The bread is warm. A child laughs in the other room. You try to open the door, but the door never opens. You wake to snow in your mouth, and a man nearby muttering nonsense to himself, eyes wide with fever. You check your glove. The note is still there. You rise. You walk. You keep it with you, not because you think it'll be delivered, but because someone should know, someone should remember that you had something to say, even if it never makes it home. You've gone through 3 pairs of boots. That's not an exaggeration. It's a quiet, painful truth, one that echoes in every step you take now. The first pair cracked open like dried fruit, somewhere past Smolensk. The second rotted off your feet in a snowstorm near the Berezina. The third well, they technically still exist, but barely. A few strips of hardened leather held together by frozen string, hope and the shape of your feet. Which brings you to now, tying strips of tree bark around your legs. Yes, bark. Birch works best. Its flexible peels in long ribbons. You cut it with a dull knife and wrap it like bandages, overlapping layers, tying it tight with frayed cords. You've seen others use rope twine horsehair. One man tried vines. Another wove his own shoes out of straw. They lasted 3 hours. Your bark boots aren't warm. They don't cushion. They rub your ankles raw, but they keep your flesh from kissing the snow directly. And that's worth more than gold now. You meet another soldier wearing actual shoes, wooden clogs. He found them in a village and stuffed them with hay. He walks like a drunken goat, slipping every 3rd step. But he's smiling. You'd trade me for these, wouldn't you? He says, grinning. You shrug. I'd trade you for the hay. He laughs. The sound freezes in the air like a memory. Later, he loses one clog crossing a creek. He screams, falls to his knees, tries to fish it out. It sinks beneath slush and ice. He limps for 2 hours, then stops walking entirely. You take his remaining clog. He doesn't argue. You've seen men wrap their feet in shirts, in rags cut from corpses. One man used parchment from a Russian church scroll. Another used pages from a Bible. You wonder if that counts as blasphemy or innovation. Historians still debate how many soldiers froze to death because of footwear alone. Some say it was the worst failure of logistics in military history. Others argue that boots can't win a war, but you know better. Boots mean movement. Movement means survival. You pass a tree stump and see 2 boots nailed to it, empty laces tied neatly. A strange offering, or maybe just someone who gave up and decided they wouldn't be needing them anymore. You don't take them. You can't reach. Your legs are too stiff, your toes are blackening. The skin peels back like old bark. You wrap them tighter, press snow into the pain, grit your teeth, and keep going. A man nearby limps worse than you. You offer him a piece of birch. He laughs, accepts it, and calls you doctor. It's the nicest thing anyone said in a week. You pass a village where every boot has already been looted. Doors hang open, closets are bare drawers ripped from furniture and dumped into snow. You check anyway. You find a child's shoe, too small, frozen stiff. You carry it for a mile before dropping it. At night, the fire burns low. You pull your feet close to it, then stop remembering what happened to that other man. He fell asleep too, near the flames. His makeshift boots caught fire. He didn't wake up in time. Burned his own foot halfway off. Now he rides in a sled with his leg wrapped in ash and regret. You keep your feet cold. Safer that way. Someone offers to trade a good sock for tobacco. You don't smoke. You take the deal. That sock becomes the difference between walking and crawling for a day and a half. Your left foot stops bleeding. Progress. You hear someone joke that Napoleon himself must have magical boots, golden ones that never freeze, never wear out, never need lacing. You laugh. Then you imagine it the emperor sitting in a sleigh boots, polished heels, warm soles, dry. You hate him for a moment. Then you hate yourself for caring. The road is a graveyard of shoes now. You step over frozen soles like cobblestones. Some still have feet in them. You don't look closely. Someone ahead finds a real pair, fur-lined Russian boots, likely taken off someone no longer using them. He walks like a king for 2 hours. Then someone steals them while he sleeps. He wakes up barefoot and screaming. You don't ask questions. You just tighten your bark straps and move on. That night you sit with another man near a fire. He has one boot, one rag-wrapped foot. You trade stories about the ones you've lost. He says he once had boots from Italy with brass buckles. You say yours were from Lyon leather, polished so smooth you could see your face in them. You both fall quiet. Neither story is true, but they help you remember who you were before the bark. You fall asleep with your feet tucked into your coat like eggs in a nest. In your dream, you're walking barefoot across green grass. The sun is warm. The ground is soft. You don't feel pain. Then you wake up. Snow in your boots again. You stand. You walk. And the bark creaks with you. You lie down. Just for a moment. That's what you tell yourself. Just to rest your legs. Just to close your eyes. You've been marching for hours. Maybe days. Through snow. So thick it swallows your knees. The cold has settled into your bones like it's paying rent. Your thoughts are slow. Your vision tunneled. Your breath a ghost on the air. So, when you see a patch of snow that looks a little less cruel than the rest, you let yourself sink into it. You curl up, hands tucked into your coat face, turned slightly from the wind. You feel good. That's the first warning. Comfort. It's a trap. The moment your limbs stop shaking, the moment your skin stops hurting, that's when it begins. The cold isn't leaving you. It's winning. You start to feel sleepy, but a warm, cozy kind of sleepy, like you're 6 years old again, buried in blankets, listening to your mother hum in the other room. You can almost hear her. The notes are soft. The song is familiar. The snow on your lashes melts and refreezes. You're dying. You know this. Somewhere inside. Deep beneath the layers of frozen muscle and fogged thought, something in you knows. But it feels so peaceful. And then, whack. A hand across your face. Hard. You jolt. Your eyes fly open. Another soldier stands over you, face red with fury, or frost, or both. He slaps you again. You grunt. He says nothing. Just yanks you to your feet and shoves you forward. Your legs wobble. One knee buckles. But you're up. He walks away without looking back. You don't even thank him. You can't. Your lips are too numb. You start walking again. Because if you stop, you die. Everyone knows it. You've seen it happen. A man sits down to retie his boots. You call out to him. He waves you off. Just a second, he says. Just a second. You pass him an hour later. Still sitting, eyes open, snow gathering on his shoulders, like a statue of surrender. Another man builds himself a little snow hut, just 3 walls and a roof made from his coat. He sits inside, arms crossed, eyes closed. You never see him get back up. Someone else stops to lean against a tree. Never moves again. The line keeps going. The march doesn't pause for anyone. Historians still puzzle over why so many soldiers froze to death while sitting down. They talk about hypothermia and core body temperature and the body's tendency to give up in stillness. But you know the real reason. Because walking hurts. Because death feels gentle when it's wrapped in snow. You talk to yourself now. Not because you're crazy, though. Maybe you are. But because your own voice is the only thing keeping you awake. You count steps aloud. You recite nonsense rhymes. You curse the wind, whatever keeps you upright. At night, no one dares sleep alone. You huddle in groups, 2, 3, sometimes 5 under blankets, made from coats, tarps, old flags, anything. You sleep in shifts, one man watching the others, ready to shake them if they stop moving, because freezing to death feels good, and no one wants to die feeling good. You wake one morning with snow in your mouth, and your right hand so numb you can't feel your fingers. You slap it against your leg. Hard. Again. Again. Someone near you says, "Don't stop. Not yet." You nod. You don't even know who said it. You walk. The road is flatter now, wider. You think that means something. Maybe civilization is close. Maybe the worst is over. But then you see a row of shapes ahead, small, slumped, scattered like fallen dominoes. Bodies, 6 of them, maybe more, all lying in the snow like they chose it. One has his hands tucked beneath his head, like a pillow. Another is curled in a fetal position, as if hoping the snow will become a womb. You don't stop. You don't close their eyes. You don't have the strength for sympathy. You just walk. Someone slips behind you, doesn't get up. Another man stops walking entirely, sits down, pulls his coat tight. You hear him whisper, "Just for a moment." You turn back. You want to scream, to slap him, to drag him to his feet. But you don't. Because you know. Because maybe tomorrow it'll be you. You march until night falls. Then you lie down. Only this time you lie down between 2 other men. You agree without words to take turns waking each other, 1 hour each. That's the deal. You set your head on a bundle of rags, close your eyes, try to dream of anything but snow. When your turn comes, you wake up the others. One curses, one thanks you. Both get up, and you keep marching, because snow is a blanket and a grave, and you're not ready for either. What's left of the Grand Armée looks nothing like the one that crossed the Niemen all those months ago. It used to be banners and brass plumes and parade drills, a juggernaut of flags and drums and certainty. Now it's a slow-moving procession of bones wrapped in cloth, hollow eyes under frost-stiff hoods, limps instead of steps, wheezing instead of orders. No formations, no cadence, just motion. Forward, because there's nothing left behind. You look around and try to count the soldiers near you. 20, maybe 30. You think this was once a regiment. Now it's a handful of shadows keeping each other company. You pass men with no weapons, no belts, no shoes, just strips of wool and stubbornness. One has wrapped parchment around his legs. Another wears a saddle blanket, like a toga. Nobody judges. If it works, it's brilliant. You spot an officer, a real one, by the look of the ruined insignia on his shoulder sitting on a stump. He's trying to shave. No mirror, just instinct. The blade shakes in his hand and his breath steams out in short, bitter bursts. He nicks himself, winces, wipes the blood on his sleeve. Still a soldier, he mutters, not to anyone in particular. He doesn't get up when you pass. Someone says that maybe 5,000 men are left now. Someone else says it's more like 3. You don't bother guessing. The numbers don't matter anymore. All you know is that you're one of the last pieces still moving. At the edge of a forest, you see a cannon sunk halfway into a snowdrift. It hasn't fired in months. There's no one guarding it. Its barrel points skyward, silent and useless. Around it lie fragments of wheels, torn harness straps, a single boot. No footprints. Just another forgotten weapon in a war that doesn't remember what it's fighting for. You stop next to it, rest your hand on the cold metal. Still here, you whisper. And then you walk on. You notice more sleds now, not carrying supplies, but people. The wounded, the frostbitten, the ones who can't move anymore but haven't died yet. They lie under blankets and rags, bundled like cargo, pulled by the last remaining horses, or sometimes by other soldiers. You help pull one for a while. A man lies inside, wrapped in a bear pelt. His face is gray. His breath rattles. You never learn his name. When he dies, someone tosses a bit of snow over his face and keeps pulling the empty sled. There's no time for burials, only distance. You hear a man ahead say they're near the border now, that the Russians have stopped chasing, that this is almost over. You don't react, because almost over still means not over. Someone tries to sing a patriotic song. They get 4 words in before the coughing starts. You keep walking. You hear a shout, joyful, stunned. A road marker. It's written in Polish, not Russian. Someone drops to their knees in the snow and kisses the base of the stone. Others cheer. A weak, broken sound, but it's still cheering. You don't join in. You can't believe it until your feet tell you it's real. The villages here are different, less scorched, less hostile. A woman in a shawl offers you a piece of boiled potato. You stare at it like it's made of gold. You take it with both hands. You don't even say thank you. You just chew, slowly, carefully, trying not to cry. It's the first real food you've eaten in you can't remember how long. You sleep that night inside a barn, a real barn, with walls, with straw. You share it with 20 other men, but you don't care. You're warm. And when the wind howls outside, it stays outside. Someone lights a candle. You watch the flame flicker, hypnotized. You think this is what survival feels like, not triumph, not relief, just quiet. You wake up sore but alive. The road is firm beneath your feet, now packed dirt, not snow. The sky is still cold, but it's no longer cruel. Birds are chirping, actual birds. You cry, not loud, just a tear or two. You wipe them away before anyone notices. Ahead, you see soldiers gathering, real soldiers in fresh uniforms. French, Polish, organized. They hand out bread, water, bandages. You stand in line like a ghost. When your turn comes, they ask your name. You pause. Say it out loud for the first time in months. The man writes it down, nods, then hands you a coat, a new one. Warm. You clutch it like a child with a blanket. Later, as you sit against a tree, You see others arriving, limping, shivering, laughing. Some collapse and are carried away. Others sit beside you, sharing bites of stale bread like it's fine cuisine. This is what's left. The Grand Armée is no longer grand. It's a trickle, a collection of survivors, a parade of miracles in ragged uniforms. But you're in it. You're still here. You made it. And for the first time in weeks, you let yourself believe. You might actually make it home. You cross the border without ceremony. No trumpets, no cheering crowds. Just the sound of boots, what's left of them, crunching over frosted ground. The snow is thinner here. The wind is still biting, but it no longer cuts all the way to the soul. And when someone ahead of you says, "We're out," you pause, look behind you, and realize Russia is gone. It doesn't look any different. Trees, snow, gray skies, the same faces, the same smells, the same weight in your limbs. But there's a shift, not in the landscape, in the air inside your lungs. You can exhale now without fearing it'll be your last. You're back on friendly ground, and yet there's nothing to celebrate. You look around at what's left. A few hundred men stumble along the road, some on crutches, some pulled in wagons. Many walk with blank eyes, heads low, mouths tight. Their uniforms are a patchwork of scavenged cloth. Their weapons, if they have them at all, hang like props in a tragedy. This is the Grand Armée, or what remains of it. You find yourself counting things you no longer have. Fingers, toes, friends, pride. It's not bitter, just mathematical. You tally what the cold has taken and what you still possess. Your breath, your legs, a name, a memory or two that didn't freeze away. You pass a stone farmhouse. A woman stands at the doorway holding a steaming bowl. Soup. Just the smell of it makes your stomach cry out. She says nothing, just hands it to you and nods. You drink it too fast, burning your tongue, and don't regret it. A few soldiers trade stories, not about battles, but about potatoes, about fireplaces, about the feel of real linen sheets. One man describes a bath so vividly you can almost hear the water slosh. You all laugh. It's a strange, delicate sound, almost unfamiliar. Someone sings, quietly, not a marching song, a lullaby. You don't join in, but you hum along. Later, in a half-standing tavern taken over by the military, a clerk asks you where you started from. You think about it. Paris, the Niemann Smolensk, the first day you saw snow. You say Moscow. He raises his eyebrows, writes it down. You ask if there's a way to send a letter. He points to a pile of stained envelopes, says, "Leave it there." No promises. You write 3 words. "I am alive." That's all. You sit by a fire again that night, not one you fought to build, but one built for you. The wood is dry. The benches are real. A roof is overhead. You can take off your boots without risking death. You wiggle your toes. Most of them still work. You look at your hands, cracked, weathered, burned in places. You can't believe they're yours. You flex them. They respond, slowly, but they respond. You breathe in, not because you have to, because you want to. Historians argue about how many made it back from Russia. Some say 30,000. Some say less. Some claim even fewer survived in body than in mind. But no number ever captures what it means to walk across that border and feel the frost finally start to lift from your ribs. You're not the same man. None of you are. You've seen snow become a weapon, hunger become a habit, cold become a god, and now you sit beneath a smoke-stained ceiling, drinking something hot and staring into the fire like it might apologize for everything it's done. You wonder if you'll ever be warm again. Not just your skin, but inside. Time passes. Officers write reports. Orders are issued. New recruits arrive. Fresh-faced boys eager for glory. You look at them and feel something between pity and warning. You think they have no idea. One of them asks, "Did you really go to Moscow?" You nod. He says, "What was it like?" You don't answer. How do you explain silence, fire starvation, and snow that eats the dead? You simply say, "Far," and that's enough. That night you lie down on real straw, a blanket on your shoulders, a roof over your head. Your last thought before sleep is simple: I made it. Not because you're strong, not because you're brave, but because you just kept walking. You close your eyes. For once the snow stays outside. You're not freezing. You're not marching. You're just resting. And now the snow settles. The roads fall quiet again, blanketed in white, untouched by boots, unscarred by wheels. The ghosts of the Grand Armée fade into the landscape, their footprints softened by wind, their voices hushed into the hush of winter. Yes, you are safe now, warm, far from the frozen fields of Russia. The fire beside you no longer flickers in desperation, but in comfort, steady, gentle, kind. Let the cold slip away. Let your shoulders drop. Let your fingers uncurl. You've walked far enough for one night. The war is behind you. And in this quiet moment, in this soft space between waking and sleep, you can finally let go. There's no need to march, no need to watch the horizon, no need to fear the silence. You've survived, and that's more than many can say. Breathe deeply. Let the frost melt from your thoughts. Let your heartbeat slow. And as the stars rise over fields, long abandoned, let their light wrap around you like a blanket. You're home now. Sleep well, soldier. You made it.